Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. It's finally game week. I've been waiting for this episode for so long because, last year never felt fully right. The COVID year was just weird. There was so much start and stop to the season. Now we're finally back to what hopefully should be a much more normal season. I can't wait to bring you this episode tonight. We did have a little bit of football this past weekend. It's a good thing that this isn't a Nebraska podcast, as I would really be struggling to come up with the right words for the listeners. But this weekend's really where college football season gets going with more teams in action. Today, we'll have some final notes from practice, some predictions for the season, preview the Oregon State game, and I'll take some questions from you all. Thank you to those who submit them on Twitter. Before we get going, though, I want to say let's try to grow this show this season. As I said, last year was weird. It was really hard to get a good podcast schedule going with 2 games getting canceled, with the whole season getting canceled at one point. This year, let's see if we can get a more regular schedule and with that grow this audience a little bit. So tell your friends that are Purdue fans, tell your friends at the tailgate on Saturday, tell the people you're sitting by at Ross-Ade, tell the people you're watching the game at home with. Let's try to grow this show a little bit. The more people that listen, the more people that chime in, and the more fun we have with it. So let's try to grow it this year. Be sure to give the show a follow on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. Tell your friends to follow the account as well, and let's have a fun year this year. Now, before we get into preview stuff, we'll touch on a little bit the latest news from the team. Not a ton has come out recently, but there was the big bomb that came out last week, a little bit unexpected. I personally didn't think that Jeff Brom would announce a starting quarterback ahead of the first game. He didn't really do this much in his time before this season. 2019 was the only year where there was really a defined quarterback coming in. But Jack Plummer going to be Purdue's QB1, the starter on Saturday against Oregon State. Not a massive surprise to me. I think this is the right call, as I said on the show last week on our offense preview episode. If you haven't gone and listened to those offense and defense preview episodes, make sure you do that before you head to Ross-Ade on Saturday. Lots of good stuff in there that thankfully still is relevant. So be sure to give those a listen. But Plummer gets the nod at starting quarterback, and I think this is the right call. Jeff Brom has noted multiple times the desire to have more come from the quarterback run game, and he even said this in his mini press conference on the field after practice last week when he announced Plummer the starter. He pointed out that Plummer hasn't always utilized his legs to the best of his abilities, and that Brom would like to see Plummer run the ball 4 to 6 times a game. Now, that's a little more than Plummer has in the past. I think that's probably pretty fair and pretty realistic. But certainly he is expecting to see more out of the quarterback run game. I think, Purdue's starting to realize that the way they're trying to run the ball now isn't working. I don't know that it's a schematic thing. I don't know that if it's necessarily a full personnel thing, but whatever Purdue is doing trying to run the ball right now hasn't been working. It's been falling pretty flat. So I think this may be just another way to try to extend that run game. We saw it a lot last year with a lot of those short dump-off passes to Xander Horvath. That's an extension of the run game. I mean, it's a pass in the books, but at the end of the day, it's not all that different from a run in execution, and I think that's what we're going to see here too with the more mobile quarterback, is just trying to find ways to escape the cellar of the Big Ten in run game, where Purdue has been dead last in rushing yards per game back-to-back years now. We had a good question come in on Twitter, and while we're on the topic of the quarterbacks, I'll just answer this now. The Mackey Maniacs ask, is the ceiling higher for the team, but is the floor lower, or is he the better all-around player than O'Connell is? That's a really good question because, with Aiden O'Connell, you kind of know what you're getting. He is a guy who delivers the ball well. He's calm in the pocket. He doesn't have the ability to extend plays as well as Plummer does. But, I think as the question comes in about the floor being, the floor being higher if O'Connell was the starter, sure. I mean, O'Connell has won more games and won a better percentage of his games than Plummer. I think that's fair to say. I don't think many of those losses have been on Jack Plummer, if any, really. I'm not sure I can think of a single game Jack Plummer has lost where I really think his poor, or even if he had a poor performance in that game, that really cost Purdue. But I do think the ceiling is higher with Jack Plummer. I think he has a higher ceiling as a quarterback, which in turn, when you're the quarterback, you are the man out there. And I think he makes Purdue's ceiling a little bit higher. But, I don't know that I think they're drastically different in terms of quarterbacks. I mean, if you were to, in like the video game world of rating players, I don't know that they're all that different. But I do think Plummer raises the ceiling. I don't know how much. I don't know if, from a Vegas win total perspective, I don't think Purdue's win total changes because Jack Plummer's in there instead of Aiden O'Connell. I think these guys are very comparable in terms of all-around ability. I just like that Plummer can extend plays more, just a little more dynamic. But that's a really interesting question, and, I'd love to know. I'm sure a lot of you all probably feel the same way about that, but very interesting question there. Then the only other piece of real info that I think is important from what Jeff Brom has told the media recently, and, after all that talk about the run game, it's another point to that. Purdue's still looking to get Samson James eligible this season. The Indiana transfer at running back. I don't know if this is going to happen or not. Obviously, the NCAA is kind of in its own world sometimes with what they do, making decisions regarding transfers and their eligibility. On paper, there's not a real legitimate reason to make him eligible, but if you're Purdue, you've certainly seen more egregious examples of players being made immediately eligible for transferring outside of the welcome period. So, yeah, I mean, you're trying to get him eligible as much as you can. And I think that could move the needle more on this team from a ceiling floor perspective than the quarterback decision. I think if you get Samson James in there, he instantly is a guy who needs to be getting carries for you. I think he could give Xander Horvath a run for his money to be the starting running back, to be the bell cow in the backfield. Him being eligible would really be interesting for this team. So that's something I'll be looking to. Will we find out this week? Probably not. But even if he could become eligible after a couple weeks of the season, you can sneak by 2-0. You get him eligible going up into South Bend. There's going to be some momentum, and some fans are going to be feeling pretty good about Purdue's chances of pulling an upset up there. But on that note now, diving into the schedule. This is something I'll always do. Last year, it was very tough to do with the schedule being very fluid. But, Purdue, as much as I complain about it, and if you've been listening to this show a long time, I disagree wholeheartedly with the way Purdue schedules games. But they've got a good schedule ahead of them. It is a very, very tough schedule. Some of it's out of their control. I mean, the draw they have in the Big Ten is going to be tough almost every year. This year's no exception. When you get a game at Ohio State as part of your draw from the Big Ten East, that doesn't help. But kicking things off this Saturday, September 4th in Ross-Ade, under the lights against the Oregon State Beavers. Very, very interesting game. Two programs really looking for a year that their fans can feel good about. We'll talk about Oregon State more later in the episode as we preview them, but a Power 5 game to get the season started, followed up by a road trip to UConn. Boy, if you followed this past weekend of football, it's a bad UConn team. That's a really, really bad UConn team. Gained less than 150 total yards in a 45-0 loss out at Fresno State. I would be lying to you if I said I've watched that game. I'm going to have to watch more of them before next week's preview episode. But boy, that UConn team looks horrible. That is a team Purdue should dominate. And then Purdue goes up to South Bend to renew the series against the Fighting Irish, a series that was played for a very, very long time. The final playing was back in 2014 down in Lucas Oil Stadium. So the first meeting in 7 years between these two interstate rivals. That's a 2:30 kickoff on September 18th up in South Bend. Tough non-conference. Purdue absolutely needs to be 2-1 leaving South Bend, and then they come home for two games that are very winnable. They've got Illinois coming in and following that up with Minnesota. That Illinois game is going to be another game you really have to win. Yes, they got off to a good start this past weekend, beating Nebraska down in Champaign, Brett Bielema's debut game. If Brandon Peters is not healthy, the Illinois quarterback who went down with an injury in the first quarter of Saturday's game, then you have to feel even better about Purdue's chances here. But that Illinois game is absolutely a game Purdue needs to win. And then you get Minnesota coming in for a game. Some people feel really good about Minnesota. Some people don't. I'm kind of in the middle. I think Tanner Morgan's a really good quarterback. I do. I think he had a tough year last year. I think he'll bounce back. Not sure what else the Gophers really have there. Muhammad Ibrahim, certainly a strong running back. Purdue's going to have to score to win that one. Not that, they won't in most games. This still isn't going to be a phenomenal defense. You're going to have to win games by scoring with this team. But, that's a game that, boy, if you win that, if you could be 4-1 going into your bye week, you're on cloud 9 if you're Purdue. Because you come out of that bye week at Iowa and then Wisconsin at home. Yes, Jeff Brom's 3-1 against Kirk Ferentz. I would never count on going to Iowa City, not Iowa State, Iowa City, and winning. That's a tough spot to play. Purdue has not had a lot of success there historically. And Wisconsin at home, obviously I think most of you do not need to be reminded that Purdue has not beaten the Badgers since 2003. That is, that's a game Purdue would love to win, but you're not counting on it. Badgers favored to win the West in the preseason. Then Purdue goes to Nebraska. This is a game Purdue's going to win. Once I get done with the schedule, I will give you my prediction. Purdue's going to win at Nebraska. That program is an absolute mess right now. When you have Scott Frost meeting with the media on Monday and saying we knew half our game plan was a wash when we saw how they lined up on defense, oh boy, it's bad. I got bored at work today and listened to a little bit of Nebraska sports radio. Tough times for that fan base. The people up in Lincoln are not happy. I can understand why. Scott Frost has no playmakers outside of Adrian Martinez, who is his own worst enemy at times as well. Tough times for that program. I think Purdue's going to win that game. That wraps up October. Michigan State at home to kick off November. That's winnable. Mel Tucker still trying to piece things together up there, replacing Mark D'Antonio. Purdue will not be winning at Ohio State. I can say that pretty confidently. Go ahead, circle this one. If Purdue does win, if they go over to Columbus and take down the Buckeyes, go ahead and cut this audio piece, tweet it back at me. I will gladly eat my words on that one, but I don't see it happening. At Northwestern, that's the game at Wrigley Field that I know a lot of people are excited about. I think that could be a really fun event. It's going to be cold, late November. Purdue also has basketball up at Mohegan Sun that weekend, so that'll be a big weekend here on the podcast. Before Purdue wraps it up, Thanksgiving weekend against Indiana. You know, this is the most hyped Hoosiers team of my life. Depending on how old you are listening to this show, it may be the most hyped Indiana team of your life. Probably certainly is, unless you were really around for the Anthony Thompson years. Even the Antoine Randall years weren't this good. So, big year for the Hoosiers. I personally have Purdue going 6-6, 4-5 in the Big Ten. I think they're getting to a bowl game. Now, if you are into the action out in the desert, if you're into gambling, Purdue's over-under win total is at 5. I do not have the over, but I like it. I think Purdue's going to beat Oregon State, UConn, Illinois, Nebraska, Michigan State, and Northwestern. Going to win those first two. Going to beat Illinois. I think Purdue just has the talent edge there. Nebraska, dumpster fire. Michigan State, I like Purdue getting them at home. That's a team, Purdue hasn't beaten in a while. I think 2006 was the last time Purdue won that series. I was up in East Lansing for that one. And then Purdue's going to beat Northwestern. I don't love this Northwestern team. They named Hunter Johnson their starting quarterback, which should raise plenty of concern if you are looking at them. He has not had the college career he was supposed to coming out of Indiana, heading down to Clemson 1 year and done there. Northwestern hasn't gone well for him either, but I say 6-6. What say you guys? Not as much optimism in my Twitter mentions. We've got a couple 7-5s, couple 5-7s. We've got a 2-10 in. Don't know about that one. So, not as much optimism there from you all, but I guess we'll see what happens. And while I'm at it making predictions, here are 5 bold predictions for Purdue football this year. Number 1, David Bell sets the single-season receiving yard record in Purdue football history. We'll see if this happens. We're going to be bold with these, all right? So, currently, 1,307 yards in a season is the record. That was John Standiford back in 2002, a Purdue team that snuck out of the Big Ten season and got to the Sun Bowl. I think Bell can do it. I think myself having Purdue in a bowl game, really looking at 100 yards a game to do it, I think that's doable. I think he's going to have some monster games this year. And I think Purdue's going to have enough receiving weapons that Bell isn't going to be able to just be smothered on every down. I think Milton Wright's going to take a step forward. I think Payne Durham's a big pass-catching body who teams are going to have to watch out for. You're always going to have to respect the slot position, especially in this offense, be it TJ Sheffield or Jackson Anthrop. They're both going to be dangerous there. And then, who comes off the bench? Mershawn Rice, Abdur Rahman Yassin, Colin Sullivan. A myriad of other names as well are going to be in contention there. Brock Thompson, the transfer from Marshall, is certainly going to see some action. I think all these guys are going to help boost Bell just because he's going to get more time open, and certainly he is one of the best, if not the best receiver in the league. He's going to set the single season receiving yard record. Number 2, Jack Plummer starts all 12 regular season games. This one is about as bold as it gets because Jeff Brom has said he's willing to play 2 quarterbacks, and I think it's very realistic that he does. I think we may possibly see 2 in the opener, but I'm optimistic about Plummer. I like his game, and the more I've watched from last season, I think he got better from his redshirt freshman to redshirt sophomore year last year. Now as a redshirt junior, I think he's going to continue to take a step forward. I think he's going to hold down this starting quarterback spot. Hasn't happened. All 12 games started by the same quarterback since David Blau back in 2016, the final year of the Darrell Hazel era. Before that, it was Joey Elliott in 2009. Talk about feeling old on that one, back in year 1 of the Danny Hope era. So Plummer's going to do that and make a little bit of Jeff Brom era history there. Number 3, George Karlaftis hits double digits in sacks. The last Purdue player to do this was Ryan Kerrigan. Karlaftis is the best defensive end Purdue has had since Ryan Kerrigan. So I think he's going to do this. This is very contingent on DeMarcus Mitchell being able to make some noise on the other side as well, so that teams can't focus their entire blocking scheme on Karlaftis. I think Mitchell's going to be fine, and I think there's going to be enough pressure from the interior defensive line as well that Karlaftis is going to get some one-on-one opportunities, and he is really, that's where he thrives, getting around guys, bullying his way through a tackle, and getting to the quarterback. The defense is going to be more aggressive this year, and Karlaftis is going to be unhinged. Number 4, Mitchell Finneran's going to lock down this kicking job. I'm really excited to see what he can do. J.D. Dellinger was rock solid last year until he had that unfortunate miss up at Minnesota when he felt the need to apologize to the fan base on Twitter after the game. He was really good, and Spencer Evans before him, another rock solid kicker. Now, Purdue's got a little bit of question mark there. I think Finneran, the transfer from Samford, is really going to do a nice job. He earned some serious accolades in his time down there. I think he's going to come up north to Big Ten country and fit right in, even though he'll be kicking in the cold weather for what will likely be the first time. And number 5, I said this last year too, didn't even come close, but we're going to run with it again. Purdue's going to return a kickoff for a touchdown for the first time since 2013 when Akeem Hunt did it in Darrell Hazel's opening season. It's been interesting to hear Jeff Brom talk about last year's special team struggles and how now he believes he's going to have more starters and, just more talented players on the special teams unit. This is going to help with the blocking. Purdue's got some capable guys. TJ Sheffield sounds like he'll get the first crack at the return game, but, there are plenty of other guys who could do it. Jaquez Cross, a freshman running back out of Louisiana, could do it. Marcellus Moore is the guy everyone's going to be clamoring for, the speedster who I believe competed in the All-American or the national championships in track this year for Purdue. He can fly. We haven't really seen him do much in a football uniform yet. We'll see what he can do, but I think someone for Purdue will return a kickoff for a touchdown this year. Those are my 5 bold predictions. We'll come back to these in December, see how I did. Hopefully I at least get, a couple of these to hit. I don't know, though. The Bell one, the Plummer one, those two are going to be tough, but I think the other three are all going to hit. Getting into Oregon State, Purdue's season opener. This is a massive, massive game. It goes without saying, but after a couple of down years in a row, and down is relative. You can look at these last two seasons in one of two ways. You can look at it and say, well, in 2019, Purdue was decimated by injuries. It's very true. Their two best players on offense, Elijah Sindelar and Rondale Moore, maybe two best. Bryson Hopkins was good as well, but Rondale Moore and Elijah Sindelar injured on the same play against Minnesota after Sindelar had already missed a game the week prior against TCU. Best two players on defense, Lorenzo Neal and Marcus Bailey, missed the season. And you were playing an incredibly young group against a pretty tough schedule. And, just really nothing went right for you. Even your backup quarterback got hurt, finished the season on your third stringer. Nothing went well that year. And then last year, we were dealing with a stop and start season that we've never seen anything like before. We've never played football during a year where there are no fans, where, people aren't, students were barely going to class. Everything was virtual. So you can look at last year and give it a bit of a pass, or, you can look at it and say the offense took a step back in 2019. We've seen Purdue go through two defensive coordinators in 2 straight seasons now, third straight season with a different guy calling the shots on D. And you can say that the momentum's starting to leave a little bit. It's up to you how you view it. I think those of you who tweeted in record predictions, you can kind of look at those predictions and see how you feel about things. But, Oregon State's coming in off of a 2-5 season, but they did beat Oregon, their arch rival in the Civil War. Oregon, the Pac-12 champions last year. That's a big win for them. That was the highlight of their season. I know 2-5 wasn't exactly what they were looking for. They were 5-7 in 2019 under fourth-year coach now, Jonathan Smith. But, in year 2 for him, he got them, to a game away and what ended up being a point away from a bowl game. They were 5-5, I believe, and lost to Washington State by 1 point before losing to Oregon in the final game of the year. So they've been right on the cusp, still looking to get over that hump, make a bowl game. They, just like Purdue, have had a quarterback competition, and just today they announced their starter. They released their depth chart. Purdue has not done that yet, which I don't plan on them doing, but they're going with Sam Neuer, the sixth-year senior transfer from Colorado, who was the starter last year, started all 6 games for the Buffaloes, completed 55% of his passes, 6 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Not the most impressive stat line. I haven't had the time to really dive into much of what he's done. But, it'll be interesting to see if they play multiple quarterbacks. I know Chance Nolan is the other name that was really in that competition. Tristan Gebbia, who came from Nebraska, he is going through an injury, got hurt last year. So the quarterback competition will be interesting. Based off Neuer's statistics, not the most, they don't jump off the page at you, but Jonathan Smith feels good about that room. Read some of his quotes from today. He feels confident in that decision. They did lose a lot of their rushing production from last year. The running back, who has since departed, was 5th in school history in rushing yards for his career. They should have a nice receiving core, though. They get quite a bit back there, and they get all 5 offensive linemen back. So quite a bit of experience on both sides of the ball. The defense is led by former Purdue defensive coordinator Tim Tibesar. He was the defensive coordinator for Danny Hope's 2012 team. That defense vastly underachieved, in my opinion. They had too much NFL talent on that defense to be as poor as they were, I guess you could say. They were not very good. Last year's defense for Oregon State wasn't great, but they get a ton of returning production back. I believe like 20 of the 24 guys in their 2 deep or something are returning. So that's incredibly inspiring. If you're a Beaver fan, they get their kicker and punter back as well. So this is a very experienced team. Purdue has the same thing. Believe it or not, if you start actually looking at experience numbers, Purdue is a very experienced team, especially in their 1 deep. Once you get in the 2 deep, not so much. But these are 2 veteran teams who need a win badly. 3 keys to the game. I will do this for every game this year. Shout out to Josh, one of our longtime listeners, for suggesting this on Twitter, though. He asked what the keys are to the game. So, number 1, special teams has to be better for Purdue. And this is a key to the season that we will see very clearly on display Saturday night. Last year, Purdue's special teams were abysmal. The punting game was awful, which is why Brooks Cormier is no longer with the team, which is why Jack Ansell is imported from Australia to come fix this situation. He'll get the first crack at it. We will see if hopefully things go well for him there. If not, Zach Collins, Brendan Cropsey are still available. Collins punted quite a bit last year. Cropsey only punted once, I believe. The kick return, kick coverage game especially, the return for a touchdown that happened against Rutgers last year, can't see repeats of that. The blocked punt against Nebraska, can't see a repeat of that. Need I say more? You want to get more out of the return games, both kick and punt returns. Special teams has to be better, and you need the kicking game to make a smooth transition into Mitchell Finneran. Number 2, forced turnovers. Turnovers with a capital S at the end. Purdue needs to force multiple turnovers. They have really struggled to do this the last 2 seasons, and that's why Purdue has completely revamped this defense, brought in a whole new coaching staff with the emphasis on being aggressive. They're going to let Karlaftis and Mitchell go after the passer. They're going to let the guys on the middle, Branson Dean, Lawrence Johnson, DeMar J. Lewis, they're going to let them go. I think we'll see a little bit more blitz from the linebackers. I think we may see some blitzes from the secondary, especially getting Cam Allen and Marvin Grant involved. Those guys are absolutely electric. So getting active on defense, forcing turnovers. If Purdue forces 2 turnovers or more in this one, Purdue's going to win. And number 3, convert on third downs. This has been a problem for Purdue in the past few years. Getting conversions on third down, especially third and short. The run game has struggled to get yards in this spot. Are they going to be able to do it this year? Jeff Brom says he's got 6 or 7 offensive linemen that he's ready to play. Hopefully that's enough. Early on it should be, but you really need to avoid injuries there. If you can stay healthy up front, let Horvath and Doru go make some plays. They can break tackles. They're tough to bring down. Purdue's got to convert better on third down. With those 3 keys to the game, Purdue does all that. I think they will do better in those areas. I've got Purdue winning 35-24. The Boilers are going to start 1-0. Out in Vegas, Purdue is 7-point favorites. The over-under is set at 66. So I've got Purdue covering. I've got the total going under. 66 is a lot of points. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm right. For Purdue's sake, it would be very good if I'm right. Jeff Brom needs this win badly. It's going to be According to Tom Dienhart of goldenblack.com, it sounds like it's going to be a packed house. He says that Purdue's expecting a near sellout. Now, expecting, near, who knows? Certainly some wiggle room there, but it's going to be busy. Ross 8 is going to be packed, and it would be very, very good to start this year with a good win, go out to UConn and get a win, and then either way, whatever happens at South Bend, if you're 2-0, you should feel pretty good coming home to start Big Ten play. Now, a couple of questions from the audience before we get out of here. Zach, a good listener of the show, he reaches out to me some. He says, do you think Brom should hand play calling over to his brother? This is an interesting question. This is certainly one that a lot of fans have asked, because last year in the season opener, Brian Brom was the acting head coach. He was calling the plays because Jeff Brom was out with COVID. That was when he tested positive for the virus. And thought Brian Brom, that is, did a very nice job calling plays in that game. I have said on the show, I liked that Brian Brom didn't abandon the run game. Xander Horvath rewarded him late in the fourth quarter of that game when he was able to break free after he'd worn down that Iowa defense a bit. Do I think Jeff Brom should hand over play calling? No. Because if Jeff Brom loses confidence in himself to call the plays, then we've got a big issue. Jeff Brom's always going to be an offensive guy. He's a former quarterback. He is really trying to instill this program on the foundation of a big, fun, high-flying offense. I think he can do it. We saw a lot of that in his first couple seasons. The flea flickers, the fake flea flicker, the double reverse flea flicker, maybe a lot of flea flickers, but we saw a lot of fun plays. We saw a lot of exciting stuff. I think maybe we'll get back to that. He's brought up wanting to be more aggressive this year. I think that's going to happen on both ends. Give him this year. If this year doesn't go well, then I think it is time to look at giving over play calling, but I want to see what he does with this newfound aggressive mindset before I end up kind of writing him off there. And then Miles, another good listener of the show, says 7-5. He's got the most optimistic prediction of any of the listeners that tweeted in. Props to you, Miles. I like that. He says, surely multiple quarterbacks playing is on Brom's agenda. What are the chances we get to see Alamo during these rotations? Does less than a 6-win season mean Brom is on his way out? Yeah, Miles. I mean, I think my bold prediction, as I said earlier, is that Plummer's going to start all 12. I think it's probably very realistic that he doesn't. I think it's probably expected that that's not the case, that we see multiple quarterbacks start. Will we see Alamo in there? Michael Alamo, the redshirt freshman from the East Coast, got the long flowing blonde hair, and he's got a big arm. Now, what we don't know, it sounds like he's acclimated well. The extra year of him being in the system has certainly helped. He was going through a bit of an injury here in fall camp, I know, so he hasn't played all of camp. I will say this. If Michael Alamo is seeing snaps for Purdue this year, this season has gone very, very wrong, and we are looking at a situation, as you mentioned, where Purdue wins less than 6 games. If we get to the point where Jack Plummer isn't playing, either due to injury or, anything else, Aiden O'Connell, who I am fairly confident is the number 2 option, isn't playing, and then Purdue's forced to make a decision between a 5th-year senior Austin Burton or going with the young guy in Michael Alamo to build for the future, something's gone pretty wrong this season. And I think, for a record like our predictions, Miles, 6-6 and 7-5, I don't think that we'll see Michael Alamo at all. I don't think playing Michael Alamo is part of the plan. Now, if things go wrong and there is less than a 6-win season, Purdue goes 5-7, 4-8, no, Brom's not going anywhere. I know this isn't the most popular take. I know we have a lot of listeners on the show who want Brom absolutely fired if Purdue doesn't win 6 games this year. I'm here to tell you that's probably not going to happen. Jeff Brom has a massive 8-figure buyout after this year. It's either 15 or 20 million in that ballpark. I can't remember which one, but regardless, after last year when Purdue Athletics really made no money, the last thing they're going to do is fund Jeff Brom's buyout. Remember that Purdue is one of the few athletic programs in the Power 5 that is completely self-sustaining. The university does not fund athletics with tuition money. So Purdue's not an athletic program that has ever been on the, say, cutting edge of spending money. We saw that with Ross Aid coming together very slowly with some of the renovations. I mean, good Lord, we didn't get lights until 2017. So, Purdue's not going to follow in the Auburn footsteps of paying Gus Malzahn $20 million to leave. Scott Frost at Nebraska might be doing the same here soon. But Jeff Brom's going to be safe. I think Jeff Brom is almost a lock to be the Purdue coach until at bare minimum the end of that 2023 season. And I would even say, through 2024, I think we have at least 4 more years of Jeff Brom before any change were to be made. Thank you guys for tweeting into the show, though. That's all I've got for today. Please tell your friends about this. I want to grow this audience. I want to have a fun year with this. You guys are awesome. Thank you for tweeting stuff in. Make sure if you're not following us on Twitter, give the show a follow at Boilers Beyond. I'll be there all season with thoughts and analysis. Next week, we'll be back on Tuesday recapping the Boilers and the Beavers and previewing Purdue's trip to UConn. Until next time, enjoy the game and enjoy a weekend full of college football.